Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I am going to make a nail set inspired by mizisua from Alien stage, or more specifically the new zombie stage. I already filed the nail tips to fit my nails perfectly before filming, and here I am wiping them with alcohol to remove any dust or debris left from the filing. And then I'm using a primer to etch the surface of the nail tips so the gel adheres better to them. And after that I am applying base coat. After the base coat, I'm building some structure with builder gel so the nails are sturdier and look more like a professional salon set rather than flat press-ons. I always start with a thin slip layer over the entire nail, and then I pick up a larger bead of builder gel and place majority of it where the apex should be, and I stretch it out towards the tip. After that, I just let the gel level itself out while I move on to the next nail. And then once I finish the next one, I go back to the previous nail and clean up the side walls, just in case there's too much gel that pulled on the sides. I don't want it to look bulky. Then I flip the nail upside down for about 5 seconds to help it self-level even more, and then I send it to cure. And then I just repeat that process for all 5 nails. I feel like that's the laziest and easiest method to do it. This set is going to be very heavy on handmade charms. I also feel like it took me way longer than any other set that I've made so far, but I am very happy with how it turned out. So I feel like it was very worth it. So before we start decorating the nails, I'm going to prep all of the molded charms. First, I'm making a whole bunch of pink and white bows using this bow mold. The overall color palette for the set is of course pink and white, and I feel a little embarrassed to admit it, but even though I absolutely love pink as a color, I do not like pink nails. They're just a way too bland and too nude looking. I prefer more colorful nails. So I ended up adding a whole bunch of red accents, even though that wasn't a part of my original plan. The pink and white are of course based on the dresses the girls are wearing in the music video. And as usual, I mixed all of these colors myself. I just combine a very thin top coat with some very pigmented painting gel. Next, I'm making some frame charms. Please ignore my eyebrow invading the frame over there. This mold is nice and flat, so it's really easy to fill. I just scrape off the excess with a scraper, but I was having a hard time removing the charm without tearing it, so after curing it, I applied a thin layer of base gel to the back and cured it again, and it was super easy to take out. Next, I'm filling this mold with some filigree relief designs, and I'm also making a little angel charm. Also, please ignore my gloves in this video, they just kept tearing for some reason. I'm not sure why I've been using the exact same gloves for ages without any problems, but for some reason in this video they just didn't want to work for me. And then I am feeling this, honestly I'm not even sure how to describe it, it's like a gothic, Catholic looking heart design with the rays coming out of it. I just thought it looked really cool. And for this one, I'm cleaning up the excess gel on the back with a little cotton swab. Oh, I broke off one of those little rays while trying to remove it from the mold, so I ended up remaking it off camera using the same trick I used on the previous charm, where I added some base gel on top, and that helped a lot. I was so grateful that the genius me decided to get this hand mold earlier, because it is absolutely perfect for this set, and I cannot imagine sculpting a hand from scratch. It was a little tricky to fill though. I'm pretty sure I ended up making like 10 hands across the 2 nails that I made featuring it. For this particular mold though, the usual mixture of top coat and color gel ended up being way too soft and flexible, so instead I mixed some clear crafting resin with the white gel. It cures way harder and makes a charm very sturdy. And the final charm from this mold definitely wasn't perfect. I had to trim away the thin layer of gel between the fingers, as well as the little support attached to the thumb. And oh my god, while I was blabbering, I already brought out all the charms and rhinestones that I'm going to be needing, and I painted some of the charms I made with a little bit of white on top just to give them some more definition. I put some caviar beads and pearls on top of this little ring palette. I used it for the first time and I loved it so much. And moving on to the actual design, I'm applying 2 coats of solid white gel over the thumb. After curing it, I wipe off the sticky layer with alcohol because I'm going to paint on top of it and I don't want the gel to spread. Also, I had a little accident with my gel palette. I dropped it a little bit and a bunch of colors mixed together. So tragic. For this design, I'm using this pink color that I mixed myself. I just combined a hot pink gel with white until I got exactly the shade I wanted. I really wanted the set to have a little bit of a circus thing going on because it is such a big part of the music video, and I felt like the most easy way was to incorporate some classic circus patterns. I'm doing stripes on the thumb, and I'm going to be doing a spiral on the middle finger. I wanted them to stay monochromatic though, so the whole set matches in color. When I think of circus patterns, I always picture them looking a little worn out and grungy. So I'm taking a nail buffer and lightly scuffing up the pink stripes to give them that slightly weathered look. Then I wipe away the dust, and I'm going to be using this gorgeous pearlescent textured gel, and I'm applying it over the pink stripes. It adds to this worn look, but it also makes the gel just a little bit fancier. And after that, I still felt like the design was missing something, so I grabbed this glitter gel and outlined both sides of each pink stripe. And now it definitely feels a lot more circus-like and festive. The thumb and pinky were actually the only nails I hadn't planned out beforehand. I was kind of just making up stuff as I went. I couldn't come up with anything better than including a little bit of a religious theme, because you cannot have mizisua without some religious undertones. I definitely got inspired a little bit by the Karma music video because it had all this religious imagery in it. Next, I'm bringing out my trusty solid gel to attach this huge red heart rhinestone. I absolutely hate to use it because those translucent red heart gems appear multiple times in the arts and music videos, and it just felt perfect for this set. I'm trimming the frame charms, and I'm attaching one to each side of the heart using the rhinestone gel. I like curing those kinds of pieces part by part so I can make sure everything sits perfectly flush against the nail. I just use the UV pin cure to press things down. I wanted to make an alien stage nail set for such a long time. I've been a fan for a while, but there was honestly not enough visually distinct elements for me to build an entire nail set around. I felt like anything I could come up with would not be recognizable enough. But then the zombie stage music video came out and I immediately had so many ideas. It was released at 2 a.m. my time and I couldn't fall asleep because I was so excited to start designing it. Next, I'm adding another red heart at the very bottom and I'm filling the empty space around it with pearls and caviar beads. At this point, I realized that I should have added this gold metal charm before curing the heart on, so I had to take the heart off and redo it. This time I'm using a larger blob of solid gel so I can place everything all together and cure it all together. And now the gold charm fits underneath perfectly. I'm also placing the little angel charm I made on top and send everything to the lamp. Then I'm adding a tiny sparkle charm, and after that I'm using a little bit more of solid gel to attach those filigree pieces around the empty side of the heart. A little pearl and some caviar beads go in between them. Then I just randomly place some rhinestones and pearls in the empty spaces. Still felt like this nail wasn't quite as cute as the others, so I added one super tiny bow. And now I'm going in with the builder gel and filling all the gaps underneath the charms and rhinestones to make sure nothing catches or falls off. And then I'm top coating everything except for rhinestones, and I also leave the angel charm and the filigree details uncoated because I don't want them to lose any of their texture. Since they're made out of the top gel, it's not really necessary. Finally, I turn the nail upside down so the top coats out levels instead of pulling along the side walls. And we can move on to the index finger. This is the design I used as the inspiration for this nail. I'm starting with this dusty pink padding gel and I'm applying it to the half of the nail closest to the cuticle. As much as I love those crystal clear press-ons I see all over Xiao Honshu, I don't really like being able to see the natural nail underneath. So I'm applying 3 coats to make it semi-opaque. It's still translucent, but I think it will look much better when I'm actually wearing it. Next, I'm applying 2 coats of this glittery gel. It looks kind of purple in the bottle, but once it's on the nail, it's actually pretty pink. Then I wipe off the sticky layer because we're going to do some stamping. I'm pulling out this lace stamping plate. I wanted this set to feel as cute and feminine as possible, so I thought lace would fit the theme perfectly. So I'm getting everything ready before I start: the stamper, scraper, lint roller, paper towel, and some acetone. I'm using this Born Pretty stamping gel and picking up those thin lace patterns. I remove all the parts I don't need using this sticky lint roller and then just stamp this lace in crisscross pattern. I clean up any leftovers from the stamper with the same lint roller. And between every round, I clean both the scraper and the stamping plate really well with acetone. And then I repeat the process 4 times. I seriously love stamping so much. It took me forever to figure it out when I first started, but now it's one of my favorite techniques. Next, I'm going to be sculpting some tiny Mizi eyeballs. I'm using this carving gel, which I recently discovered is so nice for sculpting. And I simply roll 2 little balls and then use a dotting tool to make little indents in the center. That's where the irises are going to be. For the iris, I'm going to be using this stamping gel. It was the closest shade to Mizi's eyes that I could find. I absolutely had to incorporate the auctioned off eyes of Mizi and Arm of Sue into the set. It is very dark, but I absolutely love it. I can imagine how the people who only clicked this video for a pretty nail art and have no idea what the heck a zombie or alien stage is are just sitting here being like, what the fuck is she talking about? I'm sorry, guys. Then I'm adding this light green cat eye gel to give the irises some more depth. And I magnetize it, of course. I also add the tiniest bit of this glitter gel here and there for a little bit of extra sparkle. And then I'm using a dotting tool and some black gel to add the pupils. And then I hated this first iteration I did. I added some darker gel on there, trying to create like, you know, like the eyes are not one solid color, they have darker parts. But at this tiny of scale, it just ended up looking really muddy, so I remade them without that detail and they looked so much better. Here in the center you can see the first version that was scrapped, while the ones on the sides are the final version that I went with. And finally I'm adding a huge bit of builder gel over the top. And next I'm pulling out this red cat eye gel that I'll be using quite a bit in the set later on. And I'm using it to paint the little blood vessels in the eyes to make them look a little more realistic. Since the irises sit inside those little indents, it creates this really deep glossy effect. It reminds me of the BJT doll. And now it's finally time to start decorating the nail. I'm placing some bows first, and then I place strings of pearls in between them. They kind of remind me of I almost said rosemary rosaries, which is really fitting with all the religious symbolism in the set. And then I'm also placing some eyes in between. And while I'm placing everything, please let me know in the comments if you've seen Alien Stage and who your favorite character is. Mine is definitely Sua. I was really sad how little screen time she got in the OG Alien Stage. So I'm very glad she got so much screen time in the Candice Carr music video. And while I see some people hating on her after that, it made me just love her even more. And of course, I cosplayed her before. You can find it on my cosplay Instagram. Sadly, I only got to cosplay her by myself with no Mizi. Once all the details are in place, I go back over to each bow and cure each side separately to make sure they're all sitting flush against the nail. I originally cured just the center, so now I'm lifting each side slightly, add a little bit of gel underneath and press it down with my little UV light, flash curing it. Next, I'm bringing back the red cat eye gel and I'm adding some blood around the eyes to make them stand out a little bit more. While I did want the set to be cute, I didn't want it to be way too cute, so a little creepiness is nice. I magnetized the gel a little bit, of course. It's not super noticeable, but it's there in spirit, and you can kind of see it if you look really closely. I feel like I absolutely ate with this cat eye blood. And then I'm covering all of the pearls with builder gel, making sure the edges of the eyes are completely sealed in as well. And since this nail doesn't have any rhinestones, I can just top coat the entire thing. And now we can move on to the middle finger. I start with 2 coats of white gel, just like on the thumb, and then wipe off the sticky layer. This white gel is definitely not my favorite, but I hate wasting products. And since it's only acting as a base, it really doesn't matter if it's a tiny bit streaky, because there's going to be so much stuff happening on top of it anyway. Next, I'm drawing a pink spiral. I actually had to redo it 3 times because I wasn't happy with the placement, so it took me forever to do. At this point, it kind of reminds me of the little kamaboko fish cake you get in your ramen. This nail gave me so much trouble. Just like on the thumb, I buffed the surface a little to give it a worn look, and then I cover the pink parts with this pearly texture gel and outline the spiral with the gold glitter gel. For this nail, I really wanted to sculpt the bunny from the logo, and honestly, I am terrible at sculpting. I have absolutely no sense of proportions. And doing it on the camera is extra hard for me, so of course my attempt to do it was a complete fail. So I ended up going back to it the next day and remaking it, and I am very happy with that result. I found a pretty creative solution to my problem of being unable to sculpt. So you'll see. I decided to leave the footage of me sculpting it because I spent about an hour on it, and personally I love seeing people's failed attempts as well as the successful ones. And this video is going to be ridiculously long regardless, so I might as well make it a couple minutes longer. I am using the Alien Stage Twitter icon as a reference. I just took a screenshot of it and zoomed in to the size I would like it to be, and I put a clear plastic sheet over my phone screen. I used the carving gel, making a large circle and shaping it into the bunny's head. It's kinda like a little flattened circle with a blunt bottom. I press in the indent for the eye with the dotting tool, And after curing that, I glue it onto the nail and sculpt the snout separately. Unfortunately, I made it way too big, so it looks kinda creepy instead of cute. For the ears, I switched to a regular solid gel because the carving gel just refused to cooperate with me, and they kept falling off while I was trying to work on them. And for some reason, both gels cure with a slight yellow tint instead of the pure white as they are before curing, so I painted over the bunny with a white gel, and then I also used some padding gel on top of it just because the gel was not a very even color. Then I sculpted the little ruffle collar, and honestly was pretty happy with how that part turned out. I skipped the painting process here because I will show it later with the final version instead. I'm not sure why my camera is having a white balance party over here. By the way, I'm so sorry about all the background noise in this video. It's been pretty warm here lately, so I had my windows open while filming, and we have a lot of dogs around us, so there was quite a bit of barking. My neighbor across the road has 3 adorable corgis, and while they're really cute, they're also really, really noisy. And to finish this nail, I added a few rhinestones, pearls, caviar beads, and some tiny heart sequins. I will be using them on the next nail, so I decided to put some on this one as well. Just in a few places. They are incredibly tiny and really cute. Finally, I sealed around the bunny and over all the parts with builder gel. And then finished everything with a top coat. So yeah, the next day I looked at the finished set again and decided that I absolutely hate this bunny. So I decided to take it off and restart it. Okay, so this is one I sculpted on camera. The nose area is just way too big. He looks not cute, but kind of scary. But the ruffle turned out really good. This is the first iteration, and the bunny looks way better. But the ruffle is not great. I absolutely hate this one. So I'm going to remove it. And we're going to try something completely different. I don't want to completely remake this nail from scratch. So let's hope we can remove it without damage. Oh. So yeah, I remembered that I have free will and also an idle 3D printer sitting in the garage, so I decided why not try printing out my own nail charms, and that was the greatest idea ever. And then I wiped away all the dust with alcohol and touched up this tiny spot where I accidentally nicked the white gel. Okay, so here's what I ended up with. Okay, so this one is 0.08, 0.06, and 0.04. Accidentally printed this one in black. And I think they look pretty good. Let's try taking this one because it's the only pure white one. Take off the supports. Even at 0.04 millimeter layer height, the bunny only took about 25 minutes to print, and about 10 minutes of that was just the printer prepping. The side is perfect. I'm going to take off some of the back. And I actually want to file out a hole in the eye area. So I think I'm going to keep 3D printing my own nail charms from now on. I have no idea why I never tried it before, because it's actually kinda genius. So yeah, after removing a little bit of the back, just so it sits flush to the nail, I'm going to be painting it. I very quickly realized that I should have applied a base coat first all over it, because the gel settled into all the microscopic print lines and kind of spread out, so it's not as clean as I would have liked it to be, but I don't really have time to remake it, so just for the future I'm going to know that. And honestly, for the first attempt, I am incredibly happy with it. I'm using the same cat eye gel again for the ear and the ruffle. I did 2 coats to make the color nice and opaque, and then magnetized the second layer. I'm using a little rhinestone as an eye. Once again, it spread a tiny bit onto the one of the ruffles, but it's not a super big deal. I just used a little bit of white gel to fix it. Then I glued the bunny onto the nail and finished it off with a few more rhinestones near the bottom. And I also fixed some of the glitter lines that I accidentally filed off when removing the previous bunny. Then I sealed all the edges around the bunny using builder gel, and after that I top coated everything. And oh my god, it looks so insanely good. Oh my god, look at this difference. I didn't even realize how off I was proportion-wise on this one. Now moving on to the ring finger. While the index finger was inspired by Mizi, this one is inspired by mizisua. I'm using the same base as on the index finger, 3 layers of a dusty pink padding gel near the cuticle, followed by 2 layers of glitter gel. Then I'm doing some stamping to match the index finger. I'm using a larger lace pattern and stamping it diagonally near the cuticle area. Next, I am using white gel to draw a small crisscross pattern near the tip. Her dress has this crisscross detail, so I thought it would be cute to reference that. And then I'm going to be placing a bow on top of it, just like how she has a bow on her chest. After that, I am making her severed arm, the one that gets auctioned off at the end of the music video. I'm prepping the hand mold I made earlier by filing away any rough edges on the fingers with my nail drill. I also sand down the back a little bit so it sits more flush against the nail. I glued onto the nail, and then I use a solid gel to build out the rest of the arm. I only had enough space for a forearm, not the full arm, just because the nail is so tiny, so I'm working with what I have. I tried to make it look as close as possible to a real arm. And then I create a small indent at the end and I cure it. And after that I refine the shape a little bit more using some carving gel. At this point I was really tired from sculpting, so instead of perfecting it fully with the gel, I just decided to file it smooth and rounded with my e-file instead. Then I wipe away the dust with the alcohol. And since the milky gel, as I mentioned, turns a little bit yellow, so it was a little different from the hand, I go with a little bit of white gel and gently pat it over just the forearm to even out the tone. Then I seal everything with top coat so it's extra smooth. And even though her arm is pretty wide, because, well, it's a zombie limb, it just didn't stand out enough against the very light background, so I decided to tint it pink just a little bit. I used the same pink gel from the other nails and lightly dab it over the entire arm. I went a little bit too heavy at first, so I switched to a clean side of the sponge and lift off the excess. Then I cure it and add a second layer, focusing more on the raised areas, just so I have more dimension. Next I take the same red cat eye gel and paint a bit of the blood where the arm is cut. I add small drippings and magnetize it slightly so there's this little cute shimmer. Then I go in with the second layer to deepen the color. And after that I decided that the wrist looked a little empty, so I added a small bow. And of course to make sure that it's glued very flush on both sides, I add a tiny pearl next to the bow and another one to represent the bow. Then I add the bow that I mentioned earlier, a small sequin heart on top of it, and a few more hearts near the bottom. So it looks kind of like little blood droplets. That is so genius, if you ask me. Then I added a few rhinestones at the very bottom, just so there is less empty space, and I wanted this nail to match the index finger a little bit more, so I added a string of pearls kind of flowing out of the rhinestones. And of course I made it so the Sua's hand is reaching towards the nail, but there's the zombie stage bunny in between them. Oh my god, it's so poetic. Even Shakespeare couldn't have written it better. But then while taking pictures of the nails, I realized that it only works on the right hand. I had to mirror it for the left hand, but I forgot. And now it ties perfectly with the index finger. Then I go in with builder gel and seal in all the pearls in place and make sure all the sides of the arm are covered. I know that the fingers are probably going to snag on things, but I'm hoping that since it's resin, it's not going to break off super easily and going to hold on. Then I top coat everything except for the bow, the arm, and the rhinestones, since I don't want to lose their definition. And after that I use a tiniest bit of matte top coat over the arm, just to make it look more realistic. I'm going to keep the bow glossy so it stands out. And now we're moving on to the pinky finger. I start the pinky in the same way as the index and ring fingers, 3 layers of dusty pink padding gel by the cuticle, and then 2 layers of the glitter gel over the whole nail. Then I add a little bit of pink gel in random patches and slightly smudge it out with a gradient brush. I applied too much at first, so I wiped some of the excess. Next I use the red cat eye gel to create kind of like a glowing base under the heart charm. I just make a little blob where the center of the charm is, and then I draw rays coming out of it so it matches the design of the charm. I'm so happy that I ended up going for so many red accents. I think it makes it look extra interesting. Then I start attaching the charm. I glue down the center first and then secure the top and bottom rays separately, and finally do the sides so everything sits very flush to the nail and nothing sticks up. Next, I'm using the same golden glitter gel from before to draw thin lines in between each of the rays. It's super tedious, but it looks incredible when it's done. Then I decided it needs a little bit more cuteness, so I added a big bow on top. The girls have so many bows in their outfits that I feel like every nail should have one. I even considered adding a bow to the bunny ear earlier because it just looked so cute, but I decided to stay more accurate to the reference. Then I add a few rhinestones here and there, along with pearls and caviar beads as usual, because of course I want as much bedazzle as possible. And finally, I'm going to cover some parts of the nail with a little bit of builder gel just around the bow, and also an overlay over the heart area, just because if there's some volume there, the cat eye underneath is going to be really sparkly and pretty. Then I top coat everything except for the bow and the rhinestones, and we're done with the whole set. Oh my god. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and kiss your pets for me. Love you guys. See you in the next video. Bye!